Hey everybody, just again, this is the second part to this set of videos just covering the development of this web app. The first video I mistakenly said preliminary design. That was a little bit more of just figuring out maybe like ideas and things like that, so that's not typically considered preliminary design. This video is going to go actually into preliminary design, which includes wireframes, mockups, and in my opinion, kind of laying down kind of like the map and the architecture of the design. And so, just again, like last time, just to cover, I'm just going to go into this kind of order. First, I'm going to go into some of the questions that were answered because last time we had some questions that we wanted to get some answers. So we're going to assume that we're having this kind of communication with our clients, which again, we're working on this student tutor dashboard. So we're assuming that we're working with a university or school, specifically with our learning center. We're also working on then going into the preliminary design. I'm going to kind of go through the wireframes, and after that go into the mockups, and then after that's finished we're going to go into maybe some next questions we might have as we further along into the development stages. And so just to explain like some questions that were answered, and so we're just assuming that we had this conversation, this back and forth between maybe the university, maybe between people that are looking to fund this this web application or this dashboard. We're assuming that we have more dialogue, more things are answered, and so these are some things that we have kind of gotten back from our client. So we know that the dashboard is only going to be used on desktops. So we don't have to design around responsive devices. We don't have to create a mobile app. We don't have to create it on tablets. We're just assuming that this is only going to be on a desktop. And so we also are going to assume that students and tutors are able to log in via the same dashboard. There's not going to be two completely separate interfaces and things like that. Students, so the student ID should indicate which is which. So if a tutor logs in with an ID number, that should indicate their tutor. If a student logs in with their ID number, it should indicate their student. And tutors, when logged in, should have some personalized dashboard. And so we're assuming that they should have access to the students that they're tutoring. We should assume that they should be able to kind of give more details on their sessions. So that's kind of questions that we've kind of gotten answered from with this dialogue between us and the client. And so now just talking about the preliminary design, just generally, I just want to like go through this. I think it's important before we get into the development, because preliminary design allows us to kind of address front-end design choices and options without committing to hard code or kind of a product. So this allows us to have free rein to kind of change our designs. It allows us to kind of show the client or whoever we're working with what the design will look like, what changes could be potentially made, and it's not always an aesthetic change. It could necessarily be a change in the interactions and the elements. So it just allows better communication between the clients to just the design. It always makes it easier to make changes. So it's a good idea for you to kind of convey ideas and design choices to your clients. And so the first step is kind of using a wireframe. So we have we're starting to design just the front end of the dashboard, and we wanted to double check before we do anything else and make sure that the front end just generally matches what the university is looking for. And this is typically just a very low fidelity, low commitment, and low stakes kind of design. And so I'm just going to go ahead and pull up Figma. And I decided to use Figma for this one. In the future, I might change it to another another design. And so just looking through, we're going to kind of go through what we have created for our design. And so we have 3 layout screens here depending on the information that we need. Remember, we kind of communicated with the university, and we understand that there should be 3 kind of interfaces, layouts that are presented. One is for the students to log in. Another is for the tutors. It's going to be more personalized. They can get information. And the last one should be a way that the university or someone can kind of gain access to the plethora of information about the students and tutors for the day, like the times, the sessions, the subjects, etc., etc. And so, just going through, I use Figma because Figma allows, they have a lot of community-created boards with kind of components, things that you can kind of just copy and paste. So it allowed just creating this wireframe. It took no time at all to just make this. And so this is just a way to kind of convey to the client that, okay, we have these posts here that we're going to assume that contain some sort of information. This may contain information on the sessions. It may contain information on the tutors. So it kind of opens the dialogue between what would you like to have in these kind of post boards. We're also assuming that the login screen is going to be right here. And so we're going to kind of want to have them log in on this page. And so this is kind of where everyone should start off with. And we should have a navigation bar that kind of like accesses these different screens. And so the next screen is that, okay, so the tutor has the personalized screen. They should be able to have some sort of way that they can add additional information to the sessions, or maybe to the student themselves. We're not sure, but at least having this wireframe allows us to communicate to the university or to our client that, hey, what would you like to see in this kind of in this board? Maybe you want to have a way that they can write like a text area or something like that. For these posts again, do you want to change these posts from the original home screen? How would you like it laid out? So it opens that dialogue with this wireframe. It's very low. It's a low commit, so it doesn't. And this probably takes like less than like 30 minutes or 10 minutes. It's able to kind of just discuss and plan out the next stages of the design. And so we also have this statistical analysis kind of front end look layout that it's kind of expressing to the client that, okay, we're envisioning that there is going to be these columns, this information. So like what would you want to be presented, easily accessible? Do you want it to be deleted? Do you want it to have additional screen that you click on that can like post like more information at the bottom? And so just having that wireframe will allow you to kind of have that conversation and dialogue. And so after we kind of go through this wireframe, and let's pretend that we've kind of like gone through a couple different wireframes, we've talked to the client, they've discussed a lot of things. After we kind of have a more concrete decision on kind of the basic design, we can kind of have a better idea of what the front end should be. So we can kind of commit to more of the design. Sorry, let me move this here. I just noticed that we commit more to design on some areas and can create the architecture of the site. So it's going to be able to convey and discuss interactions between the elements. What that specifically means is we can kind of like explain that you click on this button, it will kind of create this interaction on the screen. If you clicked on this will happen on the site. And so because we're able to do that in Figma, it's going to save a lot of time. We don't have to hard code anything. We don't have to we don't have to do anything with the code. It's not a commit. We won't have to change anything. That takes a lot of time. This is just going to be a way that we can kind of continue that conversation. Still low commit, it's a little bit higher fidelity, so it's going to be kind of closer to that final design, but at the same time, we can change it any way we want. And so, going back to our dashboard, we're going to kind of look and see that we have created these mock-ups. Going back to that wireframe that we had before, we've kind of decided that these posts that we discussed before should emulate some way to indicate individual sessions. But at the same time, we're not 100% sure what should be included here. We're going to assume that there's going to be some sort of time, maybe, that, they can kind of indicate when the session has started, when it's ended. That's why it has these colors. So when they click on the start, it should be able to kind of begin this timer. This empty space, this box, well, we're kind of still discussing with the client. Is this going to be a tutor's picture? Is that going to be a subject? Is that going to be the student themselves? What information should we include? And then on the personalized tutor screen, it's going to show the current student, but it's also going to give information on the next available student. And it's going to kind of give a rough idea of what information should the tutor provide for each session, or maybe not. This is kind of like an individualized screen, so we can kind of continue discussing and figuring out, okay, like what do we want to have, what should we remove, etc., etc. And we kind of have a better conception of what information is important to the university. They're going to want to know the student's name, they're going to know the class, the tutor, the time in and time out, and they're kind of explaining that, okay, when we click on it, we just want to know some additional information on the session. Was the session good? Was the session bad? Kind of it can give additional information. And using Figma is kind of nice because there's an additional screen called the prototype viewpoint that can kind of give more exact interactions. So this can kind of emulate what you can imagine and picture in your actual page or web app. And this is kind of nice because when you click on this button, these will kind of go to the different screens, so you can kind of explain that to your client. And then when you click on this, you can see that, oh, okay, now that's the purpose. When you click on here, these are these individualized sessions. It should be able to kind of indicate that the session has now started. And so doing this is, again, just easier for the client to, you don't have to explain it in detail and have them kind of imagine. You can kind of have them see concretely what the design will be. And this is better because sometimes just looking at this too, I can kind of already tell that maybe the client is like, okay, I don't want the students to be able to control where they start or end. I want to be only on the tutor screen. And so once we have that information, like, oh, okay, then we'll just take this out from here. And maybe they also might say, okay, we don't want a timer here. We just want to change it to be the time in and time out. We want to know the time that they came in, and we want it to be apparent to the students as well, just so they can know the order. And so that can help us understand, oh, okay, we're going to change this timer to be more of like a clock. Or it can also be that they're just actually looking for something like this. Like, we actually would prefer not a post for the home screen, but actually something that has like more concrete information that everybody can see. And so we can say, oh, okay, then let's just change this to the home screen. And so when we make those kinds of decisions, we're still in the process of kind of figuring out the preliminary design. We're still in communication. And so this process does take a bit of time. So we're going to continue communication between the client on the front end design, the choice of the elements, the use, kind of creating this map. And so as I discussed before, those are some things that I just came across just looking at that very quickly. But the client can also kind of choose between, hey, I'm looking for this kind of palette. Can you incorporate these colors into the design? Oh, like, um, let's change like the posts. Let's change like the layout. Let's do this and that. And if I did that on an actual website, that would take a lot of time. It would be kind of tedious. If I'm able to just do that on Figma or some kind of very like Photoshop or Illustrator or something like that, it just or even PowerPoint, it kind of like allows us to have that dialogue, make changes very quickly, and be able to kind of calculate and figure out how we can proceed from there. So yeah, so that was kind of my video on the preliminary design. Next video, I'm gonna actually get into actually developing this dashboard. So just wait for that. And thank you for watching. If you have any comments or questions or anything, feel free to like and follow for more content. All right, bye.